So if we have, let's say what now?
Now.
If we have unresolved beliefs, they're gonna cause judgments in us. I know, I can't wait to bite into mine. I've obviously got unresolved issues with food.
No sugar.
I know, I'm not supposed to have sugar. I have to tell you guys what happened with my new doctor, but I'll tell you that in a minute. So, and I obviously have this unresolved issue because now this morning I was talking to my regular doctor, and so my medical beliefs are unresolved. So for Jen to question if this woman isn't particularly a bad mother because she chose God over her son, we have to question that she has some unresolved issues. The worst thing a client can come with is an existential issue of who am I, what is my purpose, what is my belief. I mean, I am in such question, but yet I work in this field that I'm constantly like, wait a minute, did I just give a session and I don't believe anything I just said? I don't think I've gotten there yet, but I don't know, I'm in question. So we were all taught that God was the hierarchy. So I'll ask you again, how many of you have children? How many of you, when a child gets hurt, prays to whatever God or whatever entity you believe so that it's right? And you're saying so, but there was a time in your life that you might have done it,
Sure.
big time. You might have gone and lit a candle, or you might have called someone. How many of you have texted me and said, I'm praying for you? How many of people have said, I'm praying for you? Because you care about me, and whatever this is, let it pray. Now, how many religious wars are going on in the country right now, in the world?
All of
A
them.
ton, all of them. They're all religious wars. How many of you are praying for God? No one has ever thought to pray for God because of the hierarchy. So is this woman a bad mother when she's simply doing what she believes to be that God will see her child through? Either A, see him through that he'll get better based on prayer, or, and you said that, is in a better place. How many of you believe you go to a better place after here?
Something.
Okay, because your judgment, and that's what that triggered. I don't freaking know. I mean, now I'm thinking, no, it's not a better place. And I was out of town this weekend, and it came up with someone about the nature of my work, and I was saying this person had passed, and the client called, and so when I hang up the phone, we were having this conversation about this person's cousin, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's easy, dead people, and they just talk to me, or whatever, I was making the comment, but the guy made a comment like, oh, he's in a better place or something like that, and I said, well, is it? I'm like, here we are on the beach, we're having this beautiful time, are they really in a better place? Because up there, or whatever that is, do they get access to love? Do they get access to the flesh? Do they get access to these amazing experiences? They may not have the pain that we feel, like crying and the loss, but they also miss out on whatever flesh, desires we get to have. So is it really a better place? That in itself is going to force you to question, exactly. If you are flesh-oriented or desire-oriented, do you guys remember what I taught you about pain and pleasure? Who remembers what I taught you about pain and pleasure? And you have a handout. I don't know if we have a poster. I don't think we have a poster.
That might be one of the ones she's got made.
Yeah, I don't even know if I asked her to do that one. There's many that are not postered, but they're in your packet. I think it's the second handout in your packet. Here. No, it's supposed to be, it looks like this. It looks looks like this, but it has pain and pleasure.
Oh, that wasn't old.
Okay, do you remember what I taught you about pain and pleasure? Okay, so for the new people, we come from chaos and rules or structure. Actually, we come from an intact whole. We decide to have a human experience. How many people believe that you've decided to leave God or heaven or this intact supreme consciousness and chose to have a human experience? Only 3 of us? Okay. So how do you guys explain that you got here? Were you thrown down here? Were you forced down here?
Get out of here.
And that's okay. It shows that you don't have a belief system about it. So what happens when a client like me, who has such a conviction that this is how it was, comes to you? That's the whole purpose of the clinical. That's the whole purpose of counseling. The whole purpose of counseling is not to help the other person. It's to figure out your own shit. That's bottom line, right? Forget the client. You're there to figure out your own shit and say, oh damn, I don't know, this person came in with such a strong conviction. James, do you believe that you left God or the Supreme Consciousness by choice and chose to have this human experience?
Yes.
Okay, so Stacy, you don't know? Okay.
I said no.
Oh, perfect. Who said no? Okay, so what's your belief system?
That God created Adam and then he created Eve. And then they took the apple from the tree. And
Okay.
from there we were banned for heaven, but it was more like heaven was earth. It just happened to, stop being perfect because of that apple.
Okay, but
So
where
we
did
were already here. We were just,
okay.
we were unable to feel pain or loss, or we were, perfect. We were healthy.
Okay, so wait a minute. This is super important. I love this. I love this. Where did you learn that story? In Jehovah's Witnesses. You see, I didn't know this. This is wonderful. Is she saying the same thing as me? You're saying the exact same thing. I just use a different hierarchy. I said here was the whole, then we broke off into chaos or not perfect, and next is pain and pleasure, which I'll explain. So my little whole circle is here, where your whole circle is this, but we're already here. Same story. This is why wars are fought.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Because they believe everything's different and all is the same thing.
But it's all the same thing. This is a really important thing for us to understand. If she cannot, or if I cannot, understand her perspective, or she understand my perspective, we could lose a relationship, a therapeutic relationship, a friendship. She could right now be like, Dean Suarez, I am never gonna sit in that class again. That lady's crazy. But I understand what she's saying. We're saying the exact same thing. And luckily I can explain it, I think, to show, oh, we're saying the same thing. Your story evolved this way, my story evolved that way. But it's like now, Disney, what is Disney doing? You guys know what Disney's doing with the princesses? Disney is becoming very multicultural company. They're making a Latin, they're making an African American, Mulan was already the Chinese, they made Moana, the Polynesian. They're taking the same princess, the same god, and they're dressing it up in what?
Different customs.
In different costumes. One has braids, one has straight short hair, one's bald. Same princess, different hairdo. We are saying the exact same thing. Our drawing is what's a little different. The sequence of events is what's a little different. So isn't it interesting that the sequence of events, when I ask you, do you pray for God? That one, nobody does. Because the sequence of events is God helps the parents and the children. The parents and the children can't do shit for God. So sometimes we get in arguments because of an order of things. So unless we're able as therapists to understand that thing that the client is explaining and you hold on to your judgment, that's what will screw you up with a client. Not the fact you have a judgment. You are having an existential crisis. You're a Capricorn, you're supposed to, it's a skinny cow. I am having an existential crisis right now. That does not mean I still can't help my clients. It simply means we are questioning our hierarchy or the order of events. You can absolutely stay on your side of the street and help that person. Do not think, unless you know for sure that if someone abused their wife or someone cheated and you know that you cannot see that client, then you refer that person. So no matter what religious or spiritual beliefs I am questioning, I have no problem assisting this client. Is that clear? We have to really understand our limitations. How many of us have judgments in this room? Every single person. So if your judgments were going to impede you helping someone, then no one would have clients. Unless they were exactly the same as you. And that might be a really small population. We happen to be in South Florida, where there could be a lot of people that look like us. But if you're moved to a part of the country where no one looks like you, well then you're screwed, you're going to be broke. Unless you can recognize that your judgments don't necessarily keep you, they're just unresolved. And Jen, her clients, guess what kind of clients she's going to get right now?
Religious ones.
Religious or spiritual or existential clients. Why? Because the universe is conspiring, is mirroring her unresolved stuff.
I'm asking for them.
Absolutely. So the clients you get are the clients you need because they're here to help you figure out your stuff while you get paid. Okay? So unless it's something that you absolutely know, I don't know, maybe it's been so many years since my first marriage that maybe I could deal with it now, but I was so abused, it's like my cult stuff, that maybe now I can counsel someone who abuses their spouse, but I don't know. I haven't had that test, but if I did, I'd have to really question, because that's something that so many times. I remember when I was in grad school, I used to work at the Barry Family Enrichment Center, and as therapists, we had to see clients. A lot of them were court mandated, but some were just coming because it was cheap, because it was a school price, kind of like what you did at Nova. And there was this one particular client who came with her husband, and he forced her to be a raw foodist. So raw, people that eat raw, they're vegan, and they eat everything, 80% of their food is raw. And they had 2 little kids. And this was a form of abuse for her, because he was forcing, and it mirrored my relationship too much. And I don't know if I had left him yet, or I had maybe was thinking about leaving my first husband. It had nothing to do with the raw. It had to do with the fact that I was being controlled. I had 2 little kids, or 3 at the time. The story was too similar that I told my teacher. I said, I cannot see this couple. She ended up leaving him. And then I was given the case. And I thrived in that case because now the perpetrator was out. So sometimes you just have to recognize this is not a case that I can deal with. But it's been 18 years or 17 years now, maybe. If I had someone, I could do it, I don't know. So we have to know our limitations, our judgments. Does not mean we don't have them. So what have I taught you about pain and pleasure? Everyone remember this? Anyone remember this? Okay, I'll read what it says. So first we get from this whole, so in your case, you're already here. The apple is what is the difference for you. For me is that we chose. So whether you ate the apple and you chose to eat the apple, or you chose to come here and God or whatever, said, okay, do you want to go? And you said yes. Same story, same difference, okay? Then Venus, this is our body. We're given a body, no matter what. In her case, the body now became imperfect. Adam and Eve became shy. They had to hide their privates. In my story or my myth or my belief system, we get the body, our spirit, and the body joined together. Okay, hers was already weaved as spirit and body together. I said it came one, then in the other at the conception. Who cares? The point is you now have a body. And you choose pain or pleasure. You choose this lifetime to be pleasure as pain or pain as pleasure. How many of you believe you choose pleasure as pain? You all believe you choose pain as pleasure? I'm definitely a pain as pleasure person. You have to be because you're a Pisces. That's just a Pisces thing. So I'm telling you just because you have to be. So you think...
Pleasure as pain, I'm assuming.
Okay, but why? That's good to not know so that we can talk about it. Do you want me to read it? No, you say it and then I'll read what I have.
I just feel like I'm happy while everybody else is happy around me. That doesn't necessarily, basically seeing somebody else is happy makes me happy, but doesn't necessarily means that I'm like happy with myself. I'm just happy that they're happy. You get it? Like,
Okay,
I'm
so
not
she's
necessarily
speaking from
comfortable.
the other. Do we remember what axis that is in astrology? The 1-7. You and the other. I need to get their chart information. We'll tie this in with astrology. I know that might violate belief systems of some of you, but just those classes, you can throw that out the window if you're never going to use it, but it's something that everyone's interested in, so there's an idea that I am happy or I am worth something or my purpose in life has to do with when I am pleasing others or taking care of others. And then there are people that are all about themselves when I am taking care of myself, and then others can wait. So what I hear is you're very much a 7-1 or 1-7 axis. You're happy when you're pleasing or taking care of others, okay?
Even if that means hurting me, like taking something from me to give.
It could be. It could be. So you said pleasure is pain, but that's actually pain as pleasure. Okay? Very much so. Pain as pleasure comes from a false notion that you'll be rewarded in the afterlife, whatever that means to you, for your suffering on earth now. Pleasure as pain comes from a false notion that you should be punished for enjoying the desires of the flesh on earth. How many of you indulge in good, juicy sex, desire, food, and then you beat yourself up for it?
Hold on, wait.
Well, for food.
I gotta think.
I do that for food.
Okay, so that's an earthly pleasure. Let me rephrase it. How many of you believe that this earth is to be enjoyed in its full capacity? All the pleasures that it affords. Okay, so you guys are pleasure as pain. How many of you believe that there's this something, you don't know what it is, but you're going to pay now and get rewarded later? You haven't raised your hand, so you have to pick. You think there's like an afterlife or a God, or you're going to be seated in heaven or something? And which one did you pick, Stacy?
The same thing, there's
Okay, so raise your hand for those. Okay, so you guys are pain as pleasure. Suffer now, get paid later. You guys are play now, to hell with later. Okay? Both include pleasure and pain. Both include what she was saying, that the body isn't perfect. How many of you know what happens after you die? Well, how many of you think you know? Does anyone have an idea?
Yes, I agree.
How many of you think you know or know what happens after death, after you die? Nobody knows?
I used to think I knew, but not anymore.
Theoretically.
Okay, what's your, it's all theoretical because there's no way to prove it.
I
But
mean,
what
well,
is it
yeah, I
that you
guess.
think?
Nobody comes back and says, okay, this is what happens.
This is what it is.
Okay, so tell us what you think for
I don't
theoretical.
know. I've always had this like this weird conception that it's like we kind of just hit a reset button. Like as soon as you die, you come out. There's so many babies that are born throughout the world and every single second of life, and I feel like once you finally reach that end, like everything that was known in existence of that life is already terminated, and you just start somewhere else.
Okay, so a reincarnation of sorts?
In some sort of reincarnation type form, like soul transfer, if you
Yeah,
will.
when someone dies.
Like,
it
but-
goes to the baby that's being born.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's immediate?
Yes.
Okay, so I die today, and in the next second, one
In
baby
India,
in the
you're popping
world,
out.
you pop out in someone else.
But you don't know what, like, it's almost, I don't know, it's almost like, I also feel like we're a big science experiment, you know what I mean? Like, as a globe, like,
Oh, I know
someone
what
is
you
just like,
mean.
we're just sitting there, like, everybody's just, like, there's one person or something, an entity is just like, all right, we're gonna try this out first, and then he was raised in like this spoiledness of rotten money and wealth, and now let's just throw him to a third world country and see what.
Did
how
you guys
this
just hear that
experiment-
judgment?
You know what I mean? Like.
That spoiledness of rottenness
Well, I
and
mean,
wealth.
I'm just society.
Did
wait,
you
wait, wait.
hear that
Wait,
judgment?
Stop.
What part of the
I
brain,
was purely
what box-
speaking from a society level
What
of somebody
thread,
that was. Oh my goodness.
what thread spoke right there? Do you remember that box?
Better not open your mouth
On
in
the
this
society, I know
courtroom.
that's right.
What thread just spoke?
No.
He said
No,
that
listen.
it's an experiment, that this person was born in wealth and rottenness, and now is going to some third world country. What
I'm
thread
just trying to do the
could we-
complete polar opposite in contrast. That's all I'm trying to paint a picture.
So socioeconomic status, nothing is just an accident. You spoke from a thread.
Your subconscious.
This is super good. So we pulled her judgment, we pulled your, we're all threads, we're all sweaters just unraveling. Dee, 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 dee. That's just what it is, it's perfect, yes.
Actually, I just want to add something to what he said. I read something about what if the reason why babies cry when they're born is because they miss the past families.
Oh, yeah.
And the tunnel at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel is actually the opening it, okay, the light of the
Yeah.
See what I'm
the
saying?
The
hospital.
hospital.
Because there are people
Um,
that died for like seconds or minutes, and then they
Thank
come
you for
back
that.
and they say that they saw a
Appreciate
tunnel
you.
and they saw the light.
Wholeheartedly.
They just shut down and they came back. Okay.
Or
Right, so
they
in
cry.
this show with Morgan
No.
Freeman, in this show with Morgan Freeman, that's the first thing. He's interviewing this guy
Yeah. it's my
who
part.
was thrown into the ocean and for 15 to 18 minutes was dead. He says that he left his body, he saw the light, he felt like it was some universal force, a oneness or something, God, and that he heard a voice that said, it's not your time yet, and then he was put back into his body. Some would say that that's a miracle because you can't be dead for 15 to 18 minutes. And he said he saw his body. So that's a very common story. Now, how did that article make you feel?
I mean, honestly,
Professor,
I'll call back. Thank you.
honestly, I'm very open-minded. I don't say Jehovah. There's also many other things, just like I believe in the universe and whatever you put out there is gonna come back to you. So.
What's that called?
Karma.
No. No, you're not wrong when you, in terms of what I taught you. Law of,
Attraction.
Carlos something, oh,
The 7 gates.
the shame.
no. We talked about this law of attraction and law of vibration.
Oh,
So you vibrate at a place and you attract things at that. But yes, what you put out, you attract back in however way. Okay, so you're right. So karma is another way. Go ahead.
So when I read about it, I found it interesting. It kind of does make sense, but at the same time, it's like I want to believe it, but it's hard to believe it just because I spent like 14 years of my life believing, hey, that's it, YOLO, you only live once. But at the same time, it's like it would be nice to say, oh, I'm gonna come back in some other way, in some other form. My motive, my thing in life, it's not gonna end when I die. Because I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna try again and I'm gonna make it happen and I'm gonna help many other people because I will not stop coming back. So that would be nice.
But that's a
It's a
really
game for
nice
nobody.
thing. She
That's-
is questioning because she wants her life to mean more than just these 80 years. Or in that kid's, did he die, the 16-year-old?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So now 16 years and he's dead. What God would do that? That's a question.
She was, yeah, like I said, it was put on the newspaper and everything. So there was a lot of judgment going on towards the mother. I think she even went to court because,
Abuse or
yeah, like
Neglect.
neglect.
the
right.
city or whatever was saying that it was her fault because if she would have said yes, the kid would have been alive. And she said, well, I believe that God will take care of it. He will come back to me one day. And for me, it was hard, and I was saying, well, I would give him my own blood and say, oh, God, take my place, then
Okay,
my
but
child,
some people would say that's playing God. And if in the hierarchy, God is at the top, who are you to decide that you're going to take his place? Now, how many of you believe, like Buddha says, that we suffer because of attachments? Raise your hand. You don't have to believe it, I'm just saying. Oh, Buddha believes that if you're attached to anything, that's what causes pain and suffering. Because if you lose it, you're gonna be upset. So even your pen. So imagine losing a person or a relationship. Like I'm in major grief right now because I lost my marriage. I'm having difficulty deciding if I want to even lose my breasts. And up until 2 weeks ago, I wasn't very attached to them. But now that I have to make the decision to cut them or not, so attachment is the root of all suffering, is what Buddha believes. So if you guys believe that, is it admirable that this woman can be so detached? Isn't she holier? Isn't she more advanced? That she can let go of her kid and be detached from the kid? Instead of saying, fuck that, I'm giving him my blood.
Yeah.
Which is it? There's no right or wrong answer. That's what's so wonderful about this. Existential theories. We don't know. But you could see how these things can impact a therapeutic relationship. Yes.
Anything that you said, there's absolute truths. There's things that are like absolute truths, and anything other than that is a judgment. It is a theory. And I was reading this one thing, and they were talking about like if you go back a couple hundred years, people thought and their judgments and their thoughts, and like the different things that they like their superstitions, and then we look back at them now, we think of them as being silly. So then if like just where we're at now, a couple of years, 100 years before us, they're going to look at us and be like, oh, well, look what they used to think. As you start learning more and becoming more aware, it's like, might think you really have it all together.
Exactly.
But like if you do go back 500 years, we know what it was medical stuff, they thought bloodletting, leeches, like at the
Which they
time.
still do in India, it's part of Ayurvedic medicine, and I've
But-
seen it, and it's very cool.
I'm just saying.
But does it mean that I wanna have leeches sucking my illness, or do I wanna have a surgery?
They still do it in the U.S. Army
But I'm
hospitals.
not
Oh, they
saying
do
that
it in the
it's a
army?
bad
Okay,
thing.
cause I thought it was
In
illegal
burn
in the
units,
US.
especially in burn units.
Okay, and it does work, I have to
Like
tell you,
burn
I've seen it